Welcome to The Explainer. We spend a lot of time talking about how companies get started, how they grow, but what about how they end? Today, we're diving into the final chapter of a company's life, the formal, legal process of shutting it down for good. We're talking about corporate liquidation. So let's start with that big question. What happens when all the rescue attempts have failed? When a business just can't pay its bills anymore? Well, you can't just lock the doors and walk away. There has to be a formal, orderly process to sell everything off and pay back who you owe. And that process? That's liquidation. So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to start right at the moment the decision is made to pull the plug. Then we'll meet the person who gets put in charge of the whole thing. We'll look at how all the company's stuff gets sold, who gets paid first, which is a big deal. And finally, we'll see the company's official end. All right, so first things first. Liquidation doesn't just happen out of the blue. It's really the end of the line, the final step after every single attempt to save a company has failed. It all kicks off with a formal court order, basically a declaration that the rescue phase is officially over. But what actually triggers that? Well, a court would order a liquidation for one of four main reasons. First, the clock could just run out. There's a legal time frame to submit a rescue plan, and if you miss it, that's it. Second, maybe you do submit a plan, but the court rejects it. Third, sometimes the creditors, the people who are owed all the money, they just lose faith and vote to liquidate themselves. And finally, even if a rescue plan gets approved, if the company doesn't actually follow through on it properly, that can be the final straw. Any one of these is enough to start the whole process. The second that liquidation order is passed, the entire power structure of the company gets flipped on its head. The board of directors? Gone. Management? No more authority. A brand new boss steps in to take total and complete control. And that new boss is the liquidator. This is a professional appointed by the court, and you can think of them as the executor of the company's will. From this moment on, they are in charge of everything. The entire fate of the company now rests in their hands. And the powers they have are immense. They take control of every single asset, from the computers to the intellectual property. They go through all the claims from people who say the company owes them money, and of course they have the power to sell everything off. What's really interesting, though, is they can even decide to keep the business running for a while if they think that'll help them get a better price for it down the line. Okay, so with all that power, what's the first thing the liquidator does? They have to take stock. They create this huge inventory of absolutely everything the company owns. And this collection of assets has a formal name. It's called the liquidation estate. Now, this is where a really crucial line gets drawn. The estate includes all the company's property, of course, but what's excluded is just as important. For instance, employee retirement funds like provident and gratuity funds are legally protected. That is not the company's money, it belongs to the employees, and it absolutely cannot be touched to pay off corporate debts. That's a huge protection. Right, so once the liquidator knows exactly what's in the estate, the next phase kicks off, turning all of that stuff into cold, hard cash. You can basically think of it as the world's biggest and most serious corporate garage sale. And the liquidator has a few different strategies to get the best price possible. They can sell things off one by one, piece by piece. They can group similar assets together into parcels. They can sell off an entire division of the company in what's called a slump sale. Or, and this is the big one, they can try to sell the whole business as a going concern, which means a new owner could just take over and keep it running. So how do they actually do the selling? Well, to keep everything fair, transparent, and to get the highest price, the main way they do it is through a public auction. A private sale is really only a backup plan, maybe if an asset is likely to spoil or if a previous auction didn't get any bids. And now we get to the moment everyone has been waiting for. The assets have been sold, the money is sitting in the bank, so who gets paid? Let me tell you, the law is incredibly strict about this. There is a non-negotiable pecking order. This hierarchy is called the distribution waterfall, and it is absolutely rigid. The money flows from the top down, just like a waterfall. First, the costs of the liquidation itself get paid. Then come the secured creditors and workers' wages. After them, other employees. Then lenders without collateral. Then the government. And notice who's at the very, very bottom? The shareholders, the owners. And here's the brutal truth. If the money runs out at any point on this list, everyone below that line gets absolutely nothing. So after all the assets are sold and every single penny has been paid out according to that strict waterfall, there's really only one thing left to do. Make the end of the company official.
The liquidator puts together a final report for the court, which details exactly how every asset was sold and who got paid what. And based on that report, the court issues the final order, an order of dissolution. And that order is basically the company's legal death certificate. Its name is officially struck from the register of companies. For all legal intents and purposes, it's gone. It just ceases to exist.
But that leaves us with one last, really fascinating thought. What if that corporate garage sale doesn't sell off the individual parts, but sells the entire store to a new owner? Remember that going concern sale? In that case, the original legal company, yeah, it still dies. But the business itself, the brand, the operations, the jobs, it can actually survive and even thrive under new ownership. It's a pretty powerful reminder that even at the very end, the goal isn't just to destroy, but to salvage any last bit of value, any last chance for life.